Alright, welcome back to doing 2.5's questions. We're going to pick up where we left off with part 7. In question 7, we're going to use a slightly different method of solving this question. We're doing that because when we have different options and different approaches to solving questions, it gives us a better idea of how we can best use our tools to get the right answer. So this time, I'm not even going to read the question. I'm going to go ahead and read A, B, C, and D as best I can without reading it, and eliminate options that I think are wrong. In this case, I'm looking for clues in the answers that tell me that things aren't correct. So let's take a look. A. Not getting enough sunlight because cells need sunlight to function. We already know this answer is wrong, because cells don't need sunlight, they need oxygen, and they need glucose to make energy. They can also use amino acids to do this, but in this case, they definitely don't need sunlight. So this one's just wrong. B. Not getting enough sleep because the body only makes energy for exercising while asleep. Again, we can eliminate this answer immediately, because in our research we know that you don't just make energy while you're asleep, otherwise you basically couldn't function during the day, because when you ran out, you would fall asleep immediately. And since no one just falls asleep immediately, unless you're really, really exhausted, this is not something that happens. So we can eliminate A, and we can eliminate B. With that said, we've only got 2 answers left, and we haven't even read the question yet. So let's go ahead and read these. Not eating enough food because cells need molecules from both food and air to work. Already I can tell that this answer is promising, because everything it's saying is correct. I don't even need to read the question to know it. So I'm going to select it for now. But I'm going to read part D, and then I'm going to end with the question to make sure it's correct. Nothing, because you'll be able to exercise normally as long as the cells are getting molecules from the air. Again, we can eliminate this question simply because we know that what it's saying is wrong. Your cells don't just make energy with molecules from air, they also need things like glucose and amino acids. With that said, we feel pretty confident we have the right answer, but let's read the question to be absolutely certain. If a person is breathing normally, which of the following could prevent him from using his body to exercise normally? With the question read, I'm going to go ahead and rephrase it just like I did in the first method, where I rephrase the question, then look at the answers. What it's really asking me is, what conditions would stop our body from exercising normally? In our answer, if you didn't have enough food, you wouldn't get enough food molecules, and your cells need molecules from both food and air to work. That's really the crux of it here. Your cells need molecules from food and air to work. So if you don't have enough food, you won't have enough energy to exercise normally. And thus we can prove that C is the correct answer. And we got that answer without even reading the question. That's really what makes this model, or this method of solving a problem so interesting, is that if you know enough about the material, you can tell right away what's wrong just by reading the wrong answers. Let's go ahead and try it again with number 9. With number 9, we're going to do the same thing. Let's begin by reading the answers, not the question, and see what's automatically wrong. Part A. Yes, his body is working properly enough to exercise. Alright, this seems like a fair answer, but we don't know enough about the question to tell if it's correct. But it could be, so we're going to move past it. No, his digestive system is not breaking down food molecules. His cells need starch molecules to react with glucose, which releases energy. Immediately we can eliminate this answer, because we know that his cells don't need starch molecules to react with glucose, they need oxygen to react with glucose. The cells actually never use starch, they only use glucose which comes from starch. So this question is worded badly and is incorrect, so we can eliminate it. So now we have just A, possibly C, and possibly D. Let's look at C and D to see if we can eliminate them. No, his body systems are working, but he needs to eat different foods. Only protein can react with glucose to release energy. Again, for the same reasons as B, we can eliminate this question because that's not true. Oxygen reacts with glucose to release energy. And again, if you haven't seen that, you can click on these 3 little bars, open the sim, and see it for yourself. Let's go to part D then, knowing that B and C are wrong. No, his respiratory system is not working. His cells need oxygen to react with glucose, which releases energy. D is also correct, and A could be depending on the question. But even without looking at the question, we've eliminated half of the possible answers. Let's read the question now and see if we can finish it out. Doctors tested the patient to find out what molecules were in his cells. His cells contain normal levels of glucose molecules, and amino acid molecules, and low levels of oxygen molecules. Will this patient be able to exercise normally? That's a good question. So looking at what they're showing us, the only part that's unusual is the low levels of oxygen molecules, because everything else is normal. So we have to choose between A and D to answer this question. It could be a little tricky if you haven't had more practice before, especially if we haven't read everything we need to. So make sure you go back and read all of the articles and work with the simulation to see what it looks like. But with that information in hand, we can say that the answer is D. His respiratory system is not working. He may be able to run for a little while because he'll have some oxygen molecules because his level is low, but he'll eventually get tired and stop exercising pretty quickly. You see this in the sim when a person is able to walk and then they run out of energy and can't move at all. In this case, the sim is going to show us what this question wants us to know, which is that even with some oxygen, we can only do it for a little while, but not normally. That's the key word here, normally. You need to watch out for things like this, as sometimes the questions will be tricky if you don't. Alright, with that said, let's move on to number 11 and finish out our questions on this. We have another diagram, or another table rather, another table that shows us information. It's showing us information that we're going to use with the questions. Because remember, in these 3 questions, we're trying to answer with just the answers and then going to read the question. It's a different way to solve it, and it's not always going to be useful, but it's important to practice it so we have more tools when we go to the real test. Let's take a look. A. Her body systems are working properly. Alright, that question could be right, but it really depends on what's in the table. So let's try a couple more answers before we come back to it. Her digestive system is not combining molecules together. Fair. We'll find out more. Her digestive system is not breaking down molecules from food. Again, it could be true. And her respiratory system is not breaking down molecules from air. Alright, this is a really good example of sometimes a method doesn't really work. In this case, our method of reading the answers isn't as effective as it was in the previous 2 questions. So we're going to go ahead and go back and use the first method. We're going to read the table and the question and then do the answer. So, body part and system, digestive system, normal starch molecules, normal oxygen molecules, low glucose molecules. We've already seen in previous questions that low glucose molecules in the mouth in particular is not really that big of a deal, but it's worthy of note. In the small intestine, they have normal starch molecules, no oxygen molecules, and normal glucose molecules. All good there. The lungs, no starch molecules, no glucose molecules, and normal oxygen molecules. Alright, this person actually looks pretty healthy to me, so let's see what they're asking. The test report above shows the levels of molecules in different parts of the patient's body. What does this test indicate about how her body systems are working? A. Her body systems are working properly. This is my immediate instinct based on the fact that she's normal in all categories except for having low glucose in the mouth, which is not necessarily a problem. Let's read the others. Her digestive system is not combining molecules together. In fact, it is. We know this because she has normal starch and normal glucose. Her digestive system is not breaking down molecules from food. Again, we know this to be true because she has normal amounts of glucose and normal amounts of starch, which means this glucose, this normal level of glucose, is coming from breaking down these normal levels amount of starch. So this one is also wrong. Her respiratory system is not breaking down molecules from air. We can say this is wrong because we don't break down molecules from air, we simply breathe them in. And we know that we have a normal level here in the lungs. So in this case, A is the correct answer. With that done, you've finished the multiple choice, or at least half of it. Remember, you should still do the other half, the even answers on your own, using these methods as a tool to practice with. I'm doing this mostly to model so you can get an idea of how I think, so you can try practicing thinking out loud yourself to see how you can solve these questions. When we come back to the next video, we'll start a written response question to see how to do that instead.